Dante's hell is cold and dark. Unlike the images of a burning fire and a vengeful Satan as ruler over a fiery kingdom, which comes from the pen of John Milton in Paradise Lost. The reason why Dante's hell is cold and dark has to do with the Catholic theological understanding of love and beauty. How love and beauty are the greatest things in the world, and that they are contingently, integrally related to each other. Love between humans make humans more beautiful, and this is the process of divinization through love, to become more beautiful through the love that we share with other human beings. The world is made in love for love, and is therefore beautiful because of love. Beauty and love create light. Ugliness and hate, the antitheses of beauty and love, lead to darkness and coldness. Thus, Dante's hell, being filled with ugliness and hate, is dominated by darkness and coldness. The misdirected love of humans is what dominates the 2nd through 5th circles or levels of hell in the Inferno. There is a modest amount of light as we descend through these circles, but it progressively gets dimmer and dimmer, ultimately expiring in frozen darkness by the final circle of hell, where Satan resides with the frozen bodies of Brutus, Cassius, and Judas being gnawed on in Satan's mouth. The lighting and the temperature of hell is an allegorical reference to that Catholic theology concerning love and beauty. The deeper we proceed into hell, the deeper we go into the Inferno, the darker and colder it gets, because the uglier it gets, because a greater amount of hate and anger resides within it. The lack of love and beauty in hell is also reflected in the changing facial complexions of not merely the residents of hell, but also our two protagonists, Dante and Virgil. Dante's face grows paler and paler, indicative of his losing life as he journeys closer to the lifeless pit that is the center of hell. Here, hell as the second death means a place without love and beauty, a place where man's soul is forever lost, untouched by beauty and love, unable to live up to his nature, which is to be beautiful and loving. Despite Dante's paler complexion as he gets closer to the 9th circle of hell, the love, the friendship between Dante and Virgil grows, which allows them to proceed further and further, and to eventually escape hell itself. The only warmth, love, and beauty that is in hell is shown through the growing relationship, the love and the friendship of Dante and Virgil, where Virgil takes on a fatherly and protective role, and Dante comes to depend and trust on Virgil's love and kindness, as we explained in our lecture dealing with the love and friendship of Dante and Virgil. Yet as we journey through hell, the allegory of beauty and love is given a companion, the allegory of the city, the world of politics and human relations. Dante is not just speaking theological allegory in the Inferno, he is also laying on us political allegory, political philosophy, and political theology. As we proceed through hell, we also meet people who are always at war with each other, shut off from one another, can't find each other, or running away from others. As one immediately sees, there is no harmony in hell. There is only discord and chaos, war and strife. Why is this? Hell is exceedingly atomized. It is cut off. It is not united. It is separated. It is strictly individualistic. in the sense of the libido dominandi, that I am moved simply by my lust to dominate, to control, to consume. We meet many characters by name, though their faces increasingly become harder to distinguish as we journey further into hell. The only reason why we know their names is because the characters tell us their names. From Dante's perspective, however, they are all looking exactly the same. And why is this? Catholic theology teaches that man is by nature social, relational, loving. That is, man is filial, man is relational. Man is meant to be brought into communion through love with other human beings. Man is not meant to be alone. Man is made in love for love. Love requires another, not just the self. Moreover, Catholic theology teaches that the more atomistic a society becomes, the more self-centered it is, the more homogeneous the people become. Everyone simply becomes a carbon copy of whatever idol they chase after. You become what you lust after. This self-centeredness results in sameness. Everyone simply becomes a copy of whatever they are pursuing. Oh, the irony in all of this, that the more self-centered we all become, the more the same we actually become. This is why faces become more blurred as Dante and Virgil journey closer to the center of hell and only know their hellbound captives when they announce their names to the poetic duo. If they even remember their names at all. Some of them do not. There are two circles in hell that reflect the anti-relational and anti-social attitude most explicitly, which give us the most robust allegory of politics in the Inferno. The sixth circle, the entry into the so-called city of Dis, where the heretics, namely the Epicureans, are walled off from each other in tombs, unable to see or discuss with each other, which is made more funny by the fact that polite company and discussion was the highest virtue to live for, according to the Epicureans. What the Epicureans sought in their earthly life is denied to them here in hell because they rejected the truth of man's loving nature, and how through that loving nature we become self-giving souls to others, rather than remain self-centered, as the Christian interpretation of the Epicureans was. Then there is the ninth circle, where all those who betrayed their friends, their families, and their benefactors reside, the ultimate expression of anti-relationship attitudes, where one would deliberately betray the trust of their friend, of their brother, of their father, of their mother, of their sister, of their country. Hell is disordered because it is not ordered to anything other than the self. It is not ordered to family, friendship, the common good, hence why hell is simply a chaotic place, a increasingly isolated hellhole where everyone is at war with one another because everyone is simply pursuing what they want rather than working together with one another in love, compassion, and kindness. Hell is a reflection of the rejection of man's rejection of his social, relational, filial, and loving nature. Love brings us into relationships with others, whereas self-centeredness cuts us off from others. This is why man is increasingly isolated and atomized, cut off and separated in hell. There is no fulfillment of human nature in a world where we are rejecting what our nature is called to be. The fact that hell is a city, the city of Dis, is also a reflection of Catholic theology's social and relational understanding of man and the world, something that, of course, Dante knew very well. Hell as the disordered, anti-relational, and anti-family city is contrasted with heaven, the ordered, relational, and family-oriented city. And you also see the contrast between hell and heaven if you read the entirety of the Divine Comedy. There is ugliness, coldness, and darkness dominating hell, whereas beauty, warmth, and light, all a reflection of love, is what dominates the environment of heaven. Throughout the journey through hell and its construction, especially when contrasted with heaven in the Paradiso, Dante is setting up the allegory of the two cities that goes all the way back to Augustine and, from Augustine's reading of Scripture, the Bible itself, as a tale of two cities, the disordered and vengeful city of man and the ordered and loving city of God. Given the political nature of hell, is there a larger commentary, an allegory in the Divine Comedy? Yes, the Divine Comedy is equally a work of political philosophy as it is a work of theology. This is again made clearer with the contrast of heaven and hell once you read through Paradiso. In Book 2, Purgatorio, Dante writes, "Rome, which made the world good, used to have two suns that made visible the two paths of the world and of God. One sun has extinguished the other, and the sword is joined to the shepherd's staff, and it is ill for those two to be violently forced together, for joined neither fears the other." The hellish city that is hell is the way of rebellion, the way of forced violence. Satan fell because of rebellion and violence. The ninth circle is filled with traitors and rebels, those who betrayed their king, their country, their family, and their God. The message from Dante is actually not very subtle at all. Rebellion, violence, the seed of disorder, is the road to destruction. It is the road to hell. This, of course, contrasts yet again with the orderly city that is heaven, where God's authority, love, is obeyed and consented to. As such, political authorities who are given their authority by God in his wisdom are to be obeyed in love. This is why Catholicism has historically and still today promotes the philosophy of patriotism, the love of one's country. For the only way to have order in society is if you actually love it and love the people within it. Civil strife in Italy is a major theme in Dante's many side conversations with the various Italians in hell and purgatory. It is the case that Dante weeps over the strife and disorder in Italy, and Dante, of course, was an early Italian nationalist. Nationalism and Catholicism historically went hand in hand, though Catholicism today tempers that nationalistic past, again with the language of proper patriotism, rather than the strong nationalism that many of its proponents, including Dante, had promoted in past history. It suffices here, however, to say that in the world of power politics, conflict, war, and strife, Dante was also an Italian nationalist for the purpose of peace and protection. He says this in his strictly political writings in De Monarchia. He wanted Italy united and strong so it could end the violence, the rebellion, the warfare that was plaguing it, so that people could live their lives in love and peace without worry of war and the loss of their homes. Dante, of course, fought in a war, lost his home, and was exiled, along with many other Italians in the wars of the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. Thus, the ninth circle is filled with the most abominable of rebels, those who engaged in the worst acts of violence. The rebellious Lucifer and angels who rebelled against God committed violence against heaven. The ultimate crime to be punished is also the ultimate crime to be punished in Dante's Inferno. Those who rebelled against their king and country, those who unleashed violence upon their king and country, those who engaged in rebellion and violence against their neighbor, their fathers, their families, their mothers, their sons and daughters, those are the most horrendous crimes that a man can commit, and therefore must be punished most harshly in the final circle of hell. Those who rebelled against their families, those who rebelled against their country, those who rebelled against having a relationship with other human beings are now found in this final circle of hell. The punishment of rebels in the ninth circle not only corresponds with the rejection of humanity's basic social, relational, filial, and loving nature, it is also Dante's allegorical warning against political rebellion and violence in general. Rebellion and violence only brings strife and destruction. Nothing good can come from it, which is why rebellion and the rebels find themselves in the lowest rung of the Inferno. The implications to political philosophy and theology are also very clear when this is known about Dante's work. Not only is Dante giving us an allegory of art and poetry in the Divine Comedy, not only is Dante giving us an allegory of philosophy and theology in the Divine Comedy, not only is Dante telling us a lot about himself in the Divine Comedy, he is also giving us an allegory of the political as a man who was himself intimately involved in the politics of conflict and strife in Italy during his life. And he realizes here that the rebelliousness, the violence, and the political squabbles that he had involved himself in only leads to hell. You must escape. You must reject this impulse to violence and rebelliousness. Choose love, choose friendship, choose family, and you will find a city in beauty and harmony. As we can hopefully see, Dante's Inferno is a rich poem filled with steep literary, historical, theological, scriptural, and allegorical references and imagery throughout. Failure to pick up on the many deep literary themes, of course, depreciates the value of the work and turns it into a dry read. And if this is what happened to you in your first time reading the Divine Comedy or just the Inferno, hopefully you will be inspired to go back and read it with new eyes opened afresh to the reality of the beautiful allegory and the dense intellectual commentary that Dante is giving us. The basic imagery of hell and the allegories therein can be understood through the knowledge of the theology, the philosophy, the politics of the church that Dante belonged. Why is hell cold and dark? And the answer is simply that hell is a place where love and beauty are absent. The lack of love equates to the coldness of hell, and the lack of beauty equates to the darkness of hell. Why is hell a disordered city? And the answer is simply that man cannot escape his social, his political, his filial, his loving nature, even though man rejects this nature and lives for himself, the reality is this just leads to chaos, disorder, death, destruction, and violence. In rejecting or fighting against the impulse of his nature, which is to be loving, disorder and chaos is what follows, and this is represented by the disordered city of hell. Man, as such, cannot flourish in a disorderly, chaotic city, which is to say, man cannot flourish unless he lives up to his nature, and that nature is love, to be brought into relationships with others rather than to remain self-centered. Why is rebellion punished so harshly in the ninth circle, the lowest rung of hell? And the answer is simply that rebellion leads to violence and is the ultimate expression of the rejection of the order and the authority of the law of love itself. And the rejection of the law of love is a rejection of everything that is good and beautiful. It is the ultimate expression of self-centeredness. It leads you to betray your friends, your family, your country, and God himself, the God of love, which is the very nature that you possess. And so rebellion, which leads to violence, which is the rejection of the good and the beautiful, is the furthest you can be from God, which is why you are in the ninth circle of hell, the furthest place you can be from heaven. And so Dante, in giving us a political allegory in the Inferno and the Divine Comedy, moreover, he is asking us the question, a question that we must wrestle with. What should be the loyalties of the human heart? Where should we direct our energies and our desires? To ourselves? That just leads to hell. Or to our family, to our country, to our friends, and to others? That, of course, is what we are called to do. Those who reject family, country, friends, others, spiral downward into death and destruction. As Dante explained, hell. And yet it is the love that Dante shares with Virgil. It is the friendship of that companionship that allows them to escape hell and begin their ascent up Mount Purgatory to eventually enter into the realm where beauty, love, and friendship abound forever and ever. Heaven is the city of love. Hell is the city of the self.